can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Elliot Grigg. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Give us a like and give us a comment with your prediction for this fight. Elliot, thank you for joining me. Hope you're well. Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Taking place this weekend. It's a fight you kind of can't get away from. It's a big fight, and yeah, we're here to give some final predictions on it. I'll hand things over to you now before we go into a couple of details. What's your final prediction for this one, please?
You know what I mean? Thank you, obviously, for having me. Thank you for your eloquent introduction. But you know what I'm going to say at the top of the outset of this is, and it's not the sort of thing you want to hear on a final prediction video, but it is I just simply don't know. And the reason I don't know is because there's so many external factors that are at play here that you can't really predict. You look at like Jake Paul, for example, obviously hasn't been in a kind of you can't take that Tyson fight with any sort of pinch of salt, obviously. And some of the fighters that he's come in with, I suppose, since Nate Diaz, Tommy Fury really have been kind of very, very questionable. But then I look also at Julio Cesar Chavez, who is a legit fighter, was once a world champion. So you get there and go like, but then he hasn't. He had that obviously that loss to Anderson Silva, which is which was surprising. What sort of shape he's going to come in? Could he come in? Could he come in actually in reasonable shape? Could he come in kind of terrible shape? I feel like what I will say is that I feel like there's obviously so much money behind Jake Paul that I feel like unless kind of Chavez can knock him out, I feel like Jake Paul will somehow survive and thrive, as the words is. So it's like almost feel like, can he do that? I mean, to be honest with you, like when I first thought this fight, I thought actually Chavez could beat him. I really thought that. I thought actually if Chavez turns out motivated for this fight, he could win. But I also feel like is the Jake Paul kind of hype train and the kind of money train and stuff that happens outside of the ring going to sort of derail that in some way? I'm not saying that there's some sort of agreement necessarily before they fight that Chavez won't win, but I also wouldn't be surprised if that was there. That is almost like, is it entertainment or is it boxing? Is he basically getting a really good payday and Jake Paul will ride off into sunset? So I'm going to go with a Jake Paul win based really on the fact that I feel like there's more money in Jake Paul going forward as a boxer. And I think Chavez, has had his sort of time and is quite happy to sort of conduct himself as he conducts himself sometimes outside the ring. So I feel like Jake Paul will win, but I'm not basing it on anything related to boxing. I'm just basing that really on money and business, to be perfectly honest with you. If it was down to pure fight and boxing, no one was watching. It was in a back garden at a barbecue. I'd probably have Chavez winning it.
Yeah, for sure. I think yeah, you kind of have to touch on politics and business of boxing and Jake Paul. There's a lot of money to kind of be made with him in boxing, with him in the ring as well in the next few years, whereas Chavez maybe not so much. I'm going to agree with you. I think that you mentioned the Anderson Silva fight here, and I can't get it out of my head that Julio Cesar Chavez, former world champion, lost to Anderson Silva, and then kind of a couple months after, a little while after the Anderson Silva fight, Anderson Silva fought Jake Paul and lost and hasn't kind of fought again. And this is Anderson Silva was pretty old, and I think he was fairly well beaten by Jake Paul as well. So I can't get that out of my head, but it also look it depends what sort of shape Chavez Jr. is in as well. He's kind of been known for maybe not living the life in the past, so we'll see. But I'll be honest with you, it is intriguing. I much prefer this than Jake Paul fighting an Anderson Silva, for example. He's fighting someone who's actually in the sport, someone who's achieved things in the sport. So I mean, well, I'll be honest, I'm interested in it. I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Moving on, Elliot, where's like it was all very exciting when Jake Paul fought Tommy Fury, which was a while ago
Hmm.
now. It was a close fight. Jake Paul knocked Tommy Fury down towards the end of the fight as well. If we have a rematch for the end of this year, which I think could happen, it would be a big fight. Where would your head be at for a prediction for that one?
That's a delicious question because I actually feel like straight off the bat I might even back Jake Paul in that fight. I feel like you look at Tommy Fury. And he hasn't done a lot, obviously, has he, since that fight? And like you say, he was over in that fight as well. And I feel like, yeah, he's had obviously issues outside the ring, which is hopefully resolved now. But it just looks to me like I actually feel like Jake Paul, for all the kind of criticism he gets, and I think it's unfair criticism, to be honestly, a lot of the stuff he gets, really, especially from the likes of, Froch and those guys. I just feel like it's not necessary. And also, it just kind of seems a bit desperate. I actually feel like, you're sitting the guy's training, the guy's active, and the guy kind of wants to obviously yeah, it's a money vehicle at the same time, but equally he's kind of doing his best to sort of train and do it and progress. So I feel like with that kind of drive, in a way, I feel like he could get to Tommy Fury. I really do. I mean, I feel like in a close fight he could win that fight, and I'd probably predict him to do so. I don't think Tommy Fury's career is kind of stalled, if not going anywhere, from the kind of early momentum. And yeah, I would actually back Jake Paul. I'd back Jake Paul. I think it would be points. I don't think he'd stop him, but I think it would be Jake Paul on points as well. I'd lean in that one if it was to happen the end of later on this year.
Yeah, this is going to sound boring because I'm going to agree with you again. Actually, I think Jake Paul's moved forward, and I don't think Tommy Fury has. I think Jake Paul's li comes back to living the life, and whether we'll say what you like about Jake Paul, I think he trains pretty hard and takes it seriously. Whereas Chavez Jr., Tommy Fury, I don't know if they have the last couple of years. So we'll see. Look, we're not going to kind of count our chickens before they hatch. I know we already want to see that rematch, but we'll have to see if it gets announced. Final question from me to you, Elliot, before I let you go. There were strong rumors that Jake Paul and was going to fight Canelo Alvarez, which is sounds crazy, but it did look like it was likely. What it sounds like happened is Turkey Al Sheikh kind of got involved, and all of a sudden we saw Canelo versus Terence Crawford. In your head, do you think that's a fight that we could see? Canelo is going to make a lot of money in this Terence Crawford fight. Is at that end of that stage of his career now where it's probably just about legacy and making money. Um, can you see that? Can you see that fight happening? Can you actually see it happening?
A hard question because on the one hand, yes, I can see it happening. On the other hand, no, I can't. To be honest with you, I actually think no. I have to lean towards no. I feel like Jake Paul maybe mentioning Canelo, obviously, like, what is it, the kids say, talking about clout chasing, whatever nonsense they keep talking about, or like trying to essentially build his profile up with these sort of crossovers. But I feel like Canelo's a very, very different beast to Chavez Jr. I feel like Canelo's also. I feel like Canelo would flog him, frankly, if it happened, and I feel like it wouldn't be a good spectacle because he'd just batter him,
Yeah,
and it would kind of show the kind of difference. And I also feel like Canelo's a sort of he's a proud fighter, he's a proud man, he's a proud fighter. He's not just going to go in there and let Jake Paul sort of slap him around either. And he's one of those fighters that, the amount of time that he's had in the ring, the amount of fights he has, the amount of money he's made, he could have rode off into the sunset a significant period of time ago. So it's almost like one of those guys that loves boxing, loves fighting. And I just feel like there's absolutely no way that Canelo Alvarez would not take the fight seriously to the point where he would just batter Jake Paul. To be perfectly honest with you, there's that reason why I think the fight won't happen. Because surely people who are sitting there next to Jake Paul are going to go, if you do this, that the kind of journey's over. And like not only that, but you're not going to get any like credibility really out of it. It will almost devalue everything you've done to this point. Just sort of step in there with Canelo and get like, get stopped. I think if Canelo, if it was Canelo, whatever Canelo wanted to do with him, he'd do with it. Frankly, that's as far as I would see it. So I
yeah,
don't think the fight would happen. Actually, I really don't. I feel like it's one of those ones where they may just keep talking about it, keep talking about it, keep talking about it. And if Canelo retires and he blows up and he looks like Maidana, then maybe like he goes, right, I'll fight you now, sort of
yeah,
thing. But I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening while Canelo's got a pulse, frankly,
yeah,
or it looks like he can throw a punch on a water bag. So no, that's it.
for sure. And I just think. I think the money that Canelo would have possibly made in that Jake Paul fight, he's making against Terence Crawford anyway. So he's got that big money generational wealth fight that's going to kind of provide for his family for the next kind of few generations. And now maybe that fight against Jake Paul, it maybe appeal was even less because he's got the big money against Crawford instead. But boxing's boxing. Look, I really hope it doesn't happen because for safety reasons as well. You just there's
I mean,
that.
if you're Canelo, you'd say, yeah, I'll take it. Like, wouldn't I? I could go
Yeah.
like for a 50% camp and still absolutely batter him. And I
Mm,
could eat what I want if it's a certain way. I wouldn't
yeah.
even have to really cut.
Yeah.
It'd just be a nightmare. It'd be like, yeah, but I mean, you take it. But you'd obviously have Canelo stop it surely, like early,
Yeah. It,
like
yeah.
within a round, maybe 2 rounds. I mean, what are you
Yeah.
thinking?
For sure. I think so. I think that it's about what does Canelo want to do. Canelo kind of just wants to take the piss out of him and finish him in the final round. He can do that. But if he wants just to kind of get it over with, he can do that. But I hope it doesn't happen because it's just a case of how badly beaten up is Jake Paul going to get. That's kind of the question. How much of a beating is he going to take? And the idea of going from fighting a 57, 58-year-old Mike Tyson to an active Canelo Alvarez is crazy, and it shouldn't happen in the same way Manny Pacquiao fighting at 46. going straight back into a world title fight. That shouldn't happen. So these things just
I
shouldn't.
tell you what, I've just thought about this. Let me ask you this. Let me
Mm.
ask you this question. If by somehow, or they had like a catch weight or some freak weight difference, Manny Pacquiao at 36 versus Jake Paul, how would you see that fight? Who would you back in that fight?
I would still go with Pacquiao. I just think you have to.
Yeah,
You have to. I think
yeah.
I still think Manny Pacquiao now. I don't know, but I still just think there are something Jake Paul, in my opinion, might win an area title and no more. So therefore, if that's for me, if that's the case, how's he going to beat a 36-year-old Manny Pacquiao despite weight and size difference? But who knows? I mean, we could still see that fight. You can't rule. That's the funny thing about Jake Paul is he could fight like anyone next. It's like boxer, non-boxer. It could be any sort of age. It could be anyone. So it makes things interesting. But we'll see. Look, he has to get past Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. first, a fight he is the quite strong favorite for, actually. So we will see what happens. Elliot, thank you for your time. Thank you for your prediction. I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much, man, as always. And as guys, thank you very much for watching.